Before we get started, I'd just like to introduce our esteemed Board of Trustees that are here. Our Board President, Dr. Lorraine Prinsky. Our Board Vice President, Mary Hornbuckle. Board Member Jim Moreno. And Trustee David Grant. And our student trustee, Tanner Kelly. Thank you all for being here. If I could ask our esteemed panelists to please come to the stage. So while they're assembling, I'll just give you an idea of what we're going to do today. We're going to start with our college presidents. They're going to say a few words about the state of their institutions. Our board president will then talk a little bit about the state of the board, and then the chancellor will do the state of the district address. So without further ado, I will ask our first speaker, Dr. Lori Adrian, the president of Coastline Community College.
I'm just going to make some quick comments about some of the things that's going on at Coastline College. Every year we select a theme for the fall, and we connect that theme to our educational master plan goals. And indeed, throughout the year, we try to be intentional about the activities that we engage in to make sure that we are able to promote that theme and advance that theme. And so this year for the fall, our theme is Reclaiming Our Leading Edge. And as you know, Coastline has always been recognized as one of the most innovative colleges, if not in California, actually nationally and globally. And so this year, and we recognize that quality matters in terms of being on the leading edge. And so we are focusing on the standards of achievement, standards of student achievement that we had begun to develop last year and will complete this year. And certainly we're focusing on a lot of the accreditation standards and making sure that we not only meet those standards, but that we indeed exceed those standards. We had some recommendations from the previous visit, and so our team is busily making sure that those recommendations address and that we can submit a outstanding and exemplary report in March. Innovation is a key aspect of our theme this year, and so we recognize that any kind of innovation really needs to have a purpose, and so the innovation really is to support student success. And any kind of innovation has to be informed by research, and so we were lucky this year that the board approved our participation in the Educational Advisory Board, which allows us to access tremendous amount of research that's already been conducted and allows us also to tailor some research for our college. We are going to be going to a field trip, a group of faculty and staff. One of the goals, my personal goal this year, is to be able to establish a center for innovation in teaching and learning. And so we're going to be visiting a number of colleges that have outstanding centers in the Maricopa Community College District. We're also restructuring our Office of Learning and Information Technology, whereas before we had been focused more on the entrepreneurial part of it and supporting external constituencies. We want to make sure that our faculty are supported to make sure that they're able to construct and develop their curriculum and the content and delivery so that it truly does promote student success. Also, we will have entrepreneurship. I'm making sure I'm not over my 2 minutes. So I just have 2 more points. And so the other one is entrepreneurship. We know that the economy is such that it's very difficult to rely primarily on the funding from the state. So Coastline will continue to be entrepreneurial. We have some really exciting possibilities. Just the other day, our contract education hosted a visit from Kaiser Permanente. And so they chose us. They had a number of applicants, and we were actually part of a consortium. And if Bill Kerwin is here, I want to thank him too, because he started when he was with us. And lo and behold, they picked us out of a group of colleges and universities that came together to submit a proposal. And so it could potentially be a very big partnership, and that would allow us to actually deliver online education to HISER permanent employees. And she's looking at me. And we also submitted a proposal for the California Virtual College that's being conducted by the Chancellor's office, and that could potentially be a big project again. And so we're just working on a lot of we're continuing to look at what's out there, how it connects to our mission, and how we can generate additional income, again, so that we can better support the things that we want to do for our students. And finally, and most importantly, we will continue to make sure that our governance is working well and that people feel connected to the college, that they're informed, that there's good communication, and that there's engagement. Innovation doesn't happen without the people. It's not about the best practices, I always say, but it's about the best people. So that's one I'm most proud of. I'm on my 4th year of my presidency, and in the end, it is about the Coastline faculty and staff that motivates me in doing what I do, and I think it's what makes Coastline an outstanding institution. So with that, thank you very much.
And next we have President of Golden West College, Wes Bryan.
I want to give you some highlights. First, I want to start with thanking people, all of you who worked on Proposition 30. Thanks to Proposition 30, we're growing, and that's good news, and it's about time. The enrollment at Golden West in fall of 2012 to fall of 2013, we added 84 sections. And while the fill rate's down, we've offered more students, more options, than we've now have a notion for growth and capacity that we've not had in several years. It's a good feeling to be moving in a positive direction, and we'll reinstate winter intersession, and that'll help a lot of students pick up that one extra course. Student life is robust. We have a full council. It's actively engaged. It sponsored an open forum for information last week. The number of people were out. Club Rush was yesterday, and students have formed more clubs this semester, and it was the most successful Club Rush that we've ever had. Transfer Center was yesterday this week as well, the Transfer Fair. There were more colleges participating, and the people in the Transfer Center told me that in that one fair, they booked up all the appointments and are now asking for new people to come and add additional appointments for more universities and colleges than we've ever had. In athletics, the football team is 4-1, ranked 6th in the state, and it's been a long time since we've had that record. Women's water polo is 14-0, and men's water polo 10-1. Both of them are ranked number 1 in the state. Men's soccer is a 4-5-1, women's soccer 5-4-2, and women's volleyball 8-0. So we're on to a good fall in athletics. Give them a hand. Science night for 5th to 7th graders and their parents had more than 900 people attend and go through our labs and participate. Chefs for Scholarship had more vendors than we could accommodate, and the most successful ever, raising $25,000 in scholarships. Tonight, about 100 employees and friends will go to Los Al Night at the Races for a social event and small fundraiser. The Leadership Pipeline, which is a new leadership program that we announced at the beginning of this week, or last week, end of last week, and has 30 slots, and it's already sold out. So, and it's a way, it involves 20 lunch hours on Fridays, 90-minute sessions to help people who want to learn leadership skills. Moving right on, we have Courtyard of Honor next in 2 weeks, and that's where we celebrate both donors and alumni who have been awarded or recognized for their achievements. And also, about 2 weeks ago, we learned that we're the recipient of a $2.2 million Access to Success Title III grant, which will provide additional funding for the things that we already are trying to do. In terms of addressing some of our accreditation standards, the 4 things that that's going to do is help us have strategies to improve placement and transfer level math and English, the two areas that slow more students down than any other coursework. And it'll also include curricular alignment to improve progression from entry to completion. And, you know, we started that this year with a CSU in 2, where we blocked 400 seats in the times Monday through Thursday, prime time, where students in 5 majors could come in, book their seats, and if they're successful in the fall, we're guaranteeing them progression into the spring semester. And then the other area is to number 2, strengthen academic and support services. Number 4, faculty and staff development, with this particular emphasis on database decision making. And so that'll happen over the next 4 to 5 years. And then increasing resource development capacity. Finally, our accreditation subcommittee teams are all working, gathering research, and they're going to meet their first draft deadlines. And I believe that the college will be successful in demonstrating to the commission that we have remediated or successfully have plans in place to remediate every one of the things that we've got. And we also kicked off this week a number of the Measure M projects, at least the think tanks and the process getting that ready. And so that's all for the fall. The GWC mantra continues to be oceans of opportunity, and go Rustlers.
Thank you, Coach Brian. And now, the president of Orange Coast College, Dr. Dennis Harkins.
Orange Coast College continues to be a great college because of the great employees that we have that dedicate their lives to our students every day. And I want to acknowledge that the past few years have been particularly difficult for them. They've dug in, they've made extra efforts, they've worked hard. A couple of them have done a little bit over and above to cover the jobs of the people. We've seen a lot of retirements. But I think the real test of an organization is not just how it is able to remain great during the downtime, but how it looks ahead and manages its future. In September of this year, we had the kickoff of the semester, and we had a very important event that I wanted to acknowledge. The first is we had the modernization ribbon cutting for a new music wing, and with that are several new Steinway pianos. That is the last Measure C project that was done on Orange Coast College at the district. Measure C is a vision of many of the former presidents from about 1992, where they started looking ahead and said what was the college going to be and what did it need to be to serve the community. As a relatively new president, having been now starting my 5th year in January, it's interesting to come to an organization that plans, follows the plan, and funds the plan. So I congratulate not only the district, but Orange Coast College for doing that. It was also the day where we had the first project for Measure M. Measure M, if you remember, was passed in November, $698 million bond for the district. For Orange Coast College, if you look at our share of the bond, plus state match, it's going to be close to $550 million on the campus for improvements over the next 10 years. Fortunately, we have a plan. The plan's been funded, and we're going to follow that plan. We broke ground that day on a new classroom building to serve students in computing, math, and business. So it's going to be a great project for us, and I think it talks about our long-term commitment to being a member and a destination within the community. You've heard a little bit about accreditation. Accreditation is a normal part of the life for an institution in higher education. For us, every 7 years, we have a major review. Is that right, John? 7 years? 6 years. Comes quicker than I expect every year when I look at it. The accreditation team, as they left this last spring, left us with some accommodations recognizing the overall achievements of Orange Coast College. And it's good to note this because Orange Coast College had issues 6 years ago that were significant, and by working together, the college has been able to resolve those issues. And the visiting team left Orange Coast College without a single recommendation for the college. In fact, it had commendations for outstanding achievement. The first was for the broad dissemination and stakeholder acceptance of decision-making in the way that it's handled at the college. We have a publication decision, a guide to planning and governance. We also had exemplary training and support in authentic college-wide assessment for program review. So we're sustainable at program review. We had also recognition of an outstanding student government association. The Associated Students of Orange Coast College, as you may be aware, are responsible for the great student life that we have at the college, and they manage a sizable budget to make sure that the budget is available to students and to make a high level of college life. And then lastly, we had recognition for the district, and the district was given accommodation for the passage of Measure M. What's ahead for Orange Coast College this year? Well, we've been listening. Last year, we had weekly campus dialogues where we had the members of the community come and talk about specific issues. Those are published. The minutes are on the President's page of Orange Coast College. We also created something new called the OCC Lookout, and it's an online method for us to get feedback on issues and policy review at the district, so that as issues come out, they're broadcast to all the stakeholders in the college. They can fill out a form, they can attend their representative group meetings, and then it's part of the dialogue. So one of the most difficult things about a large enterprise is to keep involvement at the personal level. You know, we need to remember that it works from the bottom up by people and students that are committed to their futures and the futures of the community. In closing, I'd like to acknowledge that this is done by a great leadership team, and I'm blessed to have a great leadership team. But more importantly, they're blessed to have great students and great staff members that work with them. So Orange Coast College this next year has 3 strategic goals. The first one is student success, and this aligns with a lot of things that are being done statewide and within the district to help students graduate on time, and have the right number of classes. This fall, we have increased our course offerings 11.7% over last fall. Last summer, we increased close to 300%. So for students that are looking for a place, there's room at OCC for everyone. The second one is internationalization. We've all heard a lot about globalization, and we know that those things that we use daily and maybe even ate today came from all over the world. Internationalization is a strategic look at how the college responds to globalization and how it impacts our curriculum, our training, our processes, and everything we do. And this will include using students, the talents of our staff members, and the leadership of our administration all the way through that. The last is professional development. 2 years ago, Orange Coast College submitted a survey for the best places to work survey with the Chronicle of Higher Education, and we received acknowledgement in 2 areas. And those were for compensation and benefits. We continue to strive to become the best place to work in all areas for employees. Our third goal is professional development, and that's helping each person become the best they can be themselves. We want to recognize that employees are responsible for their own self-development, but we want to make sure they have the resources, the environment, and the time to improve and to grow. The world is changing, and our staff members have proven in the past, particularly over the last 4 years, that they're flexible, innovative, and committed. So with that, Orange Coast College is a good place to be. It's a great institution because it has great people and great students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harkins. Next up, we have our board president, Dr. Lorraine Prinsky.
Good afternoon. I'm really honored to be here representing our board up with our 3 presidents, sharing the platform with our 3 presidents and our chancellor. We have a strong board. I'm really happy with our board. We have, even when we disagree, we have 5 strong voices, leaders from a variety of backgrounds who each of us trying to contribute something that we believe is in the best interest of the district, always keeping in mind that we're serving students, and students come first. And I want to emphasize that we really do think about how whatever discussion we're involved in, how it impacts students, how our decisions impact students. I'd like to welcome all of you here. This is, I'm going to be mentioning a couple of firsts here, but this is our state of the district. Another opportunity for us to get together and talk about what we're doing and recognize what we're doing. We, of course, provide written reports to you, but I think this is another format for providing information. Recognize a lot of very familiar faces here, but I'm especially pleased that there are unfamiliar faces here. And I hope to see some of those of you who don't attend meetings in this room, to invite you to come to our board meetings. I promise you that we work to keep you awake. We definitely have this year. So I'd like to bring you up to date on some of the things the board's been doing, and I want to emphasize accreditation, because that's really been a major source of our work this year. In the early part of this year, preparing for the accreditation visits, getting our reports together, asking questions about the reports, clarifying the language, working with the three colleges in the district in getting those reports together, and then waiting for the visit, having the visit, and then finally seeing the report coming back to us. And now we're working very hard to satisfy the recommendations of the Accrediting Commission. Some of these things have to do with our board, and we want to improve our board. And a lot of these have to do with board policies, and one of our major areas of work have to do with revising board policies, updating board policies. And you may have noticed that we're reviewing dozens and dozens of board policies. Probably a lot of you have served on various committees, have shared governance aspects of our district, and you've been asked to look at these policies and weigh in on them, and these are all coming back to the board for final approval. And we want to make sure that we meet the ACC-JC deadlines that we have, and with time to spare. We don't like to be up against a deadline. I mean, we're not the kinds, I think those of us on the board and those who we work with in the district, we're not the kinds of people who wait until the last minute to get our homework done. So we're really working on this to be ready. We appreciate the work of the District Governance Council in the expedition of the needed policy reviews. So we are really looking closely at our policies. One thing that I'm very proud to talk to you about is the revision of our board self-evaluation process. We take our self-evaluation very seriously. I mean, we're taking it more seriously this year than probably ever before. For the first time, we have sent an evaluation form to every employee in the district. So it's no longer just a board self-evaluation, but we're asking you to evaluate us. And we're interested in what you have to say, what all employees have to say, what your perceptions of the board are, what you think are areas of improvement needed, any recommendations, and these will be discussed next week at our next board meeting. So I'm looking forward to hearing what all of the responses have been, discussing these with our board. We're going to come up with a set of goals for our board and an action plan to work on improving our board, responding to what we hear from you, what we hear from each other, and making our board the best possible board that we can have. Another area that we're working on right now is reducing our legal costs. We've been hearing you, and we're all aware we're not happy with the cost of our legal expenses, and we have a committee that is working right now looking at various ways of reducing our legal costs. We want to put these funds into the classes, into the colleges, and less into legal costs, and we're working on that. So on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I want to thank you for your hard work and dedication to student success. I mean, that's really why we're here. The past few years have been challenging for all of us, and we've worked through these difficult fiscal circumstances, and I'm happy to say that it's really the board that took the lead in restoring the financial losses to those of our employees who willingly accepted furloughs. We took the lead on that, and we are, I'm very proud of our board for doing that, and that's one of the things that we've done. So now we're entering our period where we expect a little more fiscal stability, thanks to Proposition 30, some growth, thanks to to Measure M, and we want to work with these, to where we've been kind of forced into cutting back over the last few years to entering into a phase where maybe we have an opportunity to make some needed changes and to review what we're doing. We want to provide the best possible education and opportunities for our students, and that's why we're all here, and we're all going to work together to reach that goal. Thank you.
All right, why don't we do this? Everybody stand up. Now, in presenter school, they tell you never to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I want you to tell the person next to you, make two statements to them. First of all, I want you to tell them how good they look. Okay, all right. All right. Okay. See, this is why they tell you not to do this in presenter school. It's hard to get people back. Second statement is just tell them how glad you are to see them today. Okay, thank you. You can have a seat now. So we're all here for a couple of reasons. One is to get a free lunch, and we recognize that. But hopefully, the more important reason you're here is to listen to what our presidents and board chair and eventually I have to say about where we are in the district. So let me start off with a couple things. First of all, let me thank the board for its support over my 2 years here, and for some of the difficult decisions they've had to make for in the best interest of our students. But second, I want to thank another group, and that's the group I sometimes refer to as the Magnificent Seven. And they are our vice chancellors, presidents, and Dr. Parham, who serves in support of that group. So I want to ask the vice chancellors and presidents to stand and be acknowledged. Now, so we've you've heard a couple of the presidents talk a little bit about what's important and why we do what we do. And a lot of it's around the central theme that all the actions and decisions we make ought to be based on how they improve or enhance student success, but more importantly, how we know it. So we make a lot of assumptions that things that we do, in fact, will support student success. And in some cases they do, in some cases they don't. This district, in particular, has a national, perhaps international reputation in terms of providing the kinds of things that students need, and being innovative, and being open for new things. One of the things that I think has happened to not only this district, but this country in terms of higher education is that I think we've done a lot of hunkering down. Some of it based on budgetary considerations, some of it based on fear, some of it based on just conservative approaches to things. So what we really wanted to do is, first of all, thank all of you for what you've done and what you're doing. I want to thank faculty in particular for ignoring those limitations and ceilings on your classes and letting additional students get in when we didn't have enough money to open new sections. I want to thank our classified staff for gladly accepting that additional duty without compensation. I want to thank our managers for excelling in ambiguity. I want to thank our board for resolving to do the right thing for our students. And most importantly, I want to thank everybody for maintaining excellence and quality despite our fiscal challenges. I'm reminded to some extent of an old saying, and I'm not sure where this originated, but it was a 19th century saying, and it had to do with how things had progressed. And people would say, we ain't, English folks, okay, we ain't where we want to be. We ain't where we're going to be, but thank God we ain't where we was. I think that's a fitting statement for the budgetary environment that we've been in over the last several years. Certainly, Coast is not where it's going to be. It's not where it wants to be, but we're not where we were. And so we look at an environment now that suggests to us that for the first time in many years, we will not have a cut in our funding. For the first time in many years, there will be no conversations about layoffs. For the first time in many years, people can strategically plan for growth, improvement, and development, and innovation. So we've struggled during recent times about where to place priorities. Students always, certainly, priorities, but we made a very conscious decision last year. We made a decision that our employees were also important to us. And for that reason, we went into stabilization, because it allowed us not to lay off anybody. And we knew that going into stabilization would be somewhat controversial. Not everybody would support it, but at the end of the day, we think it was the right thing for the right reason. And so now we find ourselves in a situation. Prop 30 has passed. Thank you, all of you. Measure M has passed. Thank you, all of you. And we have a great opportunity to propel this institution to its next highest level. We are a very good district, but we are not yet a great district. But the thing that gets us from very good to great is you. So all of us will have to kind of dig down internally and make some decisions about what we can do to get us from very good to great. So let me talk a little bit about the realities of the budget, because the budget's always important. Not the most important thing, but one of the important things. So Prop 30 passed. What does that mean to us? It means to us that there are potentially some new dollars available. But what do we have to do to get those dollars? We have to grow, okay? So they're not automatic. You heard Dr. Harkins talk about his increase in students and sections. You heard President Bryant talk about what's happening in Golden West, and President Adrian talk about the growth at Coastline. All important. But even more important, we have to maintain that growth, and we have to add to it. So if we want to see some new dollars, then we're going to have to grow. So we've got aggressive marketing campaigns going on. We need to continue to track our trends. Why are we growing? Why are we not growing? Who are we competing with? Interestingly enough, some of you already know this and seen this. Who else is ratcheting up to compete with us for this enrollment? Everybody. Short answer is everybody. The proprietaries, the four-year institutions, the new entrants. Let's talk about the new entrants for a second. So, how many of you were here for the Launchpad conference a few weeks ago? Quite a few of you. All right, so you know we had Gene Wade in, who is the founder and CEO of University Now. Interesting concept. Bachelor's degree, $4,300 a year, online all kinds of data analytics behind what they're doing. So they can track at any point in time a student's progress towards certain competencies. And they can tell that student any point in time where they are, what they need to do to maintain their successful completion of a course or a program. New entrant. Oh, I forgot to say, they're also accredited. So everybody else is doing the same thing. So we're going to have to really redouble our efforts about how we make sure that students know what we're doing, why we're doing. We can't rely on just word of mouth. We're going to have to make sure that our faculty have the tools they need so the students can get what they need. We're going to have to make sure that we have programs in place so students aren't just taking arbitrary courses. We're going to need to make sure that we're doing the kind of environmental scanning that we need to do to make sure that the programs that we have are relevant. All of that has to be a continuum. So now we know what we need to do. And I've said this to you and many others. We have the intellect to fix whatever the issues are. We have the know-how. What we have lacked is the resolve and the will. So we're going to be asking you to think about how we put that resolve and will in place. So now we have Measure M. So we got Prop 30. We know what we have to do to get there. Here comes Measure M. $698 million. Pretty significant amount of money. 9th largest bond in the country. I think 3rd largest in California, behind a couple of school districts, large school districts. So we have the means. But we have to make sure that we spend our time, energies, and we do it in a strategic way. So one of the things you heard some of the presidents talk about, and we said from the very beginning with Measure M, is we're not going to be building a whole lot of new buildings. Why do you think that is? Why are we not building a lot of new buildings? Come on, guys, ladies. Why are we not building a whole lot of new buildings? Might not have the students to fill them. Okay, what else? Technology. Okay, what else? Fix the old ones. So we'll be rehabbing a lot of the old ones, building some infrastructure. One of the things that Vice Chancellor Dunn insisted on, and a lot of input on, we got a lot of input from the board and from many of you, is that one of the things perhaps we needed to do with our bond that almost nobody else was doing was we needed to create some ongoing, if you will, support. So we're creating a couple of endowments. One is for technology, because every year what has to happen? We have to upgrade. So we're creating an endowment out of the bond that will allow us to have monies to upgrade when we need to. And we're creating an endowment to help us maintain. Because it's easy to get bond money, but you got to operate it and maintain it, those new facilities. So we now have those two endowments in our bond, central to what a 21st century institution needs to look like and needs to do. So we've got Prop 30, we've got Measure M. So what else do we need to do? We need to look at how we do things. Are we efficient? Are we properly allocated and deployed? Are we structurally where we need to be? Does our 19th century model work in the 21st century? So you all know I like to talk about the two important days in the academic year, right? What are they? Not quite. Close. What are the 2 days I like to talk about? Memorial Day and Labor Day. Okay. So what happens on Memorial Day and Labor Day besides pools open and pools closed in most of the country? Not in California, it's a little different, but summer ends, summer begins. Okay. Based on a harvest schedule, an agrarian schedule. So here we are operating a school district, school system based on an agrarian model. How many of you farmed lately? And I know some of you actually have little plots because you bring vegetables and stuff in from time to time. But very few of you make your living farming anymore, right? So this notion of having kids available to help plant and then harvest, That's what our schedule is based on, folks. Dean knows it. He's shaking his head, but he knows it. That's what we're scheduled to do. So does that model make sense in the 21st century? Anybody have a sense of where we are in terms of science, math, engineering in the world? Where do we rank? Top 10? Middle? Bottom? Somewhere around the middle. High bottom, low middle. How about that? Accept that, okay. Talk about a simple thing like time on task. How many hours do our students spend in school versus some of the top countries? By the way, who are some of the top countries in math, engineering, and science? India, try Thailand, try all those third world countries. South Korea, all those third world countries are number 1, 2, and 3 in math, science, and engineering. There's a reason. They don't do Labor Day and Memorial Day. They don't do a 5-hour day. Time on task is important, particularly in those areas. So we used to talk about STEM all the time. Now we talk about STEAM because we recognize the arts are important as well, right? Arts is where we get our creative people, creative thought, creative. So if you talk to tech people, and you say, well, what's your number 1 graduate? And everybody thinks it's going to be engineering, right? What is it? Music majors. Why is it music majors? There's a music theory. What happens in music theory? What do you learn in music theory? Come on, I know some music folks out here. What do we learn in music theory? You learn math, what else? Structure, how to compose, how to see one note from the other, see the linkages, see the adjacencies. All important things. The kind of thing that we need to do. So, a couple of years ago, we talked a little bit, we being mostly cabinet folks, about what are the things that we really want to do? What's going to propel us to the next level? What's going to make us a 21st century institution? So we came up with some stretch goals. Those stretch goals, one was to attain of 60% completion for students by the year 2014. Now, interestingly enough, when this goal came out, we got a lot of response on this. Well, what do you mean completion? Define completion. Define student success. By what measure are we going to get to that 60%? 60% of what? 60% of how? 60% of whom? Martha just told me I only have a few minutes left. But anyway, so the notion is, but we wanted, and interestingly enough, just recently, if you all have been watching, Lumina, Gates, and a couple other foundations, major foundations, just published a paper. One of the things in their paper was to create a 60% completion rate of undergraduates by 2020. We were ahead on that one, okay? So goal 2 talked about increasing our international population to 15%. Right now we're about, Dwayne, Dr. Serban, who are 3% international student population. Total, maybe about 5%, somewhere around there. So we wanted to triple our international student population. People say, well, why do you want to do that? We're an Orange County institution. You know, our funds shouldn't be spent on international students. Why do you want to internationalize the campus, Dr. Harkins? What's wrong with you? You must be from Atlanta or someplace. You know, it's why would you want to do that in California? Well, a couple of reasons. Every employer I talk to tells me a couple of things. One is we want our employees to be able to work in diverse settings and environments and interact with people from different cultures, beliefs, the whole 9 yards. You can't do that if you haven't been exposed to that. So we need to expose our students to other cultures, students coming from this country who can bring different perspectives. We also want to make sure that our communities are interacting with these different cultures. And then lastly, quite frankly, there's a revenue interest in bringing international students to this country because three things happen. One is we get their funds up front. They're guaranteed. We don't have to chase anybody down. We don't have to go the collections route. We don't have to do any of that. These students are usually well screened and really are at the college level. And those dollars are typically guaranteed for a year or more. So that's one of the reasons, those are the reasons we want to do that. And then our third goal is, and you heard Dr. Harkins talk a little bit about this too, is we want to be a best place to work, okay, by 2020. We want to put into place the kinds of things that we need to have, professional development, employee opportunities, good workplaces, great facilities because of Measure M and other things, because we want to be a best place to work. We want people knocking down the door. Every time we put out a job announcement, we want 250, 300 applications for it because people know this is a place that you want to be a part of. But we want to be a best place to work. So those were our stretch goals. So let's talk a little bit about the future. That's probably over my time already, but it is what it is. That's part of it is what it is, right? Okay. So a lot of you hear me talk all the time about this notion of creating our own future. And people say, what are you talking about? You can't create your future. You're a slave to your future. And say, well, maybe not. What we can't do is we can't predict the future. I can't tell you what's going to happen in 3 years. But I can give you a pretty good idea of what's going to happen in certain areas by doing a number of things. I can look at trend data. I can do environmental scanning. I can talk to people. I can talk to employers. So I say to employers all the time, what do you need in terms of employees in 5 years? And most of them tell me, I don't know. I can't tell you that because things are changing so quickly. There's so many disruptive innovations and so many disruptive technologies out there. I cannot tell you what I need from an employee in 5 years. So the next question I generally ask them is, okay, if you can't answer that question, tell me this. What are the attributes that you want employees to have? They can answer that question. I want people who can come to work on time. I want people who can interact in different groups. I want people who can speak multiple languages, including signing, American Signing. I want people who can solve problems, think critically. They can tell me all those things. So for us, that ought to begin to inform us maybe about what we're doing and what we're not doing in terms of curriculum. It maybe inform us in terms of maybe some baseline things we need to do. Maybe looking more at a multidisciplinary approach and an interdisciplinary approach to courses and programs. What does the future look like? Well, if I were to say to you, and I'm going to give you a 30-second audience participation segment now, what's the future going to look like in 20 years for higher education? What's the future going to look like in 20 years for Coast? Anybody? Ideas? What are we going to look like? Same structure, same walls, same courses, curriculum, same faculty, same staff? What are we likely to look like? Okay, let's do 5 years. Can't do 20, let's do 5. What do you think, 5 years? More online, okay? More students? More students, more diverse students, okay? What else? If you all were standing out there in the hallway, you'd have plenty of answers. Come on. Better prepared students. Let's look at that for a second. So I'm having a conversation with a gentleman from Intel. He's the vice president of HR. And he says to me, I can't get enough engineers. We project that we're going to need 5,000 additional engineers in the next couple, 3 years. I said, what's the problem? We can't get enough people graduating in engineering and science and technology. And, oh, by the way, the ones that I get, I've got to retrain. Okay? So I said to him, now, what do you pay for an average engineer right out of college? bachelor's degree out of college. 90,000 and above, depending on their area of specialty. What do you need? Well, I need transactional engineers. Now, I had never heard of this. Some of you folks probably knew about this. That transactional engineer. Anybody know what a transactional engineer is? Okay, transactional engineer is somebody who doesn't necessarily have a specialty, but has a core. And because of that core, they're able to do several aspects of engineering. It's kind of a generalist, yeah. In the 70s and 80s, when the aeronautic firms were really ramping up, they had a lot of these transactional engineers because they were trying a lot of different technologies and whatnot. In the 90s, when the aerospace and early 2000s, when the aerospace industry started to tank, a lot of these people started to leave the field or specialize. So now what's happened? Anybody seen a 787 lately? You know what the 787s are? Boeing, right, the Dream. I know. What's special about the 787s? Okay, besides it being huge. Made of new materials. Those materials heavier or lighter than the old planes? Lighter. 70% lighter. But 600% stronger. Ceramics based, all kinds of new materials, as they like to say, that are in these planes. So what does it have to do with anything? We don't have a lot of people who know a lot about ceramics and some of these new materials. So these various firms are having to train these engineers after they come in. He said, but you know what I found out? We found out that this particular content of knowledge in a specific discipline is no longer what we need. What we need are people who can figure out how to do things in different ways. What we found out is that a high school student with certain proclivities and certain cognitive abilities and attributes is as likely to project to be successful in this industry as an engineer graduate from Purdue. Scary stuff. We would actually take a cognitive assessment and determine that a person has the ability to become an engineer without going to engineering school, going through the same training regimen. What implications might that have on the way that we train people? So I said to him, how about an engineering tech who could do that? How much would that save you? And he thought about it, and we're having a conversation next week to talk about it a little bit. The point I'm trying to make is that the future is here. We can sit and wait for it, or we can get in front of it and determine it. So Jim Collins says, from his book, Good to Great, gives you several options, right? One option is get on the bus. Second option is get left by the bus. And the third option I'll offer is drive the bus. Okay? We want to drive the bus. We want to be in front of, we want to be determining what happens. We want to determine our own futures, and we can. We're smart enough, we have the resources, but do we have the will? So, let me say, no matter whether you believe in the MOOCs or the flipped classroom or the badges or the 24/7 academic calendars, and by the way, Nancy, did you pass out the article? Higher education as we know it is changing. All of it is not good. But two things will certainly have significant impact on the way that we do business and who we are. Number one, anybody know what just happened in Florida a few months ago? What did the Florida legislature do? Well, they made it harder for people to vote. Yes, you might say that. But what did they do in terms of higher education? Made it all one system? Not quite. Here it is. So we won't have a guessing game on this one. Florida legislature passed a law that says anybody who graduated after 2004 from high school in Florida, remedial education is an option for them. Okay? This is going to have profound effect upon what we do and how we educate people. Check that out. That law, which now gives people the ability to say, I don't care what happened on that placement test, I'm not taking that remedial course. Game changer. Now, what's the second one? The second one is at the federal level. What just happened with the Obama administration in terms of colleges and universities? They're awarding financial aid for competency-based programs. That's one. That's not the major one. The major one is the new rating system. All right? Your funding, our funding, will be largely based on a new federal rating system. Okay? What do you think might be in that rating system? What considerations? How many people finish? How quickly they finish? Maybe some federal standardized assessment? What are the implications for us? They're huge. So the Florida legislature and the federal government, what are the states that usually follow the trends in higher ed? Florida, California, and Texas. Need I say more? So we need to be thinking about that, and we need to be proactive about that. So the big consideration that needs to happen in all of this is that we need to find within this environment of change how we maintain quality and excellence. And in fact, how we enhance quality and excellence. And the only way we can do that is that we have to work collaboratively. We have to work with our academic senates. We have to work with all our constituents to figure out, given the resources that we have, both human and capital, but more importantly, the intellectual resources that we have, how we get in front of this stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot afford to let this happen to us. We cannot afford to let the future happen to us. We have to drive this bus. We have to get out in front of this and determine where we sit in this. So people often say, the position you take on certain items, where you stand on certain items, has a lot to do with where you sit. But we can't sit and let this happen to us. We need to be formulating new programs, new strategies. We need to be strategic, and we have to take control of our futures. So I had a lot more to talk about, but maybe that'll be for the next time. And there will be next time. There will be a series of discussions about some of what I've talked about today. And what we need to talk about. So I just want to say, I want to thank all of the folks in the District Governance Council for last Monday. We had a very spirited, robust, exciting discussion about where we're going in terms of 21st century faculty and some of the kinds of considerations that we need to be looking at with that. So while I don't ever, in fact, I can't ever remember doing this before, but I'm going to do it today. We need to think about getting involved, being open-minded to possibilities, thinking about things differently, being the change we wish to see, which was Gandhi's admonition. But let me just read you this very quick story that Dr. Harkins shared with me. And again, I apologize for reading to you, but I haven't memorized this one yet. So you all know I like stories. So, very quickly. This is about a fish, an owl, an eagle, and a squirrel. And one day they decided that they wanted to have a school so they could be smart like humans. And so with the help of some grown-up animals, they came up with a curriculum they believed that would make them a well-rounded animal. Running, swimming, tree climbing, jumping, and flying. On the first day of school, the little Brer Rabbit combed his ears, got ready to go to class, and went running off. There he was a star. He ran to the top of the hill and back as fast as he could, and oh, did it feel good. He said to himself, I can't believe it. I'm at a school to get to do what I do best. The instructor said, Rabbit, you really have talent for running. You have great muscles in your rear legs. With some training, we will get more out of every hop. The rabbit said, I love school. I get to do what I like to do, and I get to learn to do it better. Oh, what a concept. The next class was swimming. When the rabbit smelled the chlorine, he said, wait, rabbits don't do swim. Instructor said, well, you may not like it now, but 5 years from now, you'll know it was a good thing for you. In a tree climbing class, a tree trunk was set at a 30-degree angle so that all the animals had a chance to succeed. The little rabbit tried, but as hard as he tried, he could not succeed. In the jumping class, the rabbit got along just fine. In the flying class, he had a problem. So the teacher gave him a psychological test and discussed and discovered that he belonged in remedial flying. In remedial flying class, the rabbit had to practice jumping off a cliff. They told him if you just work hard enough, he could succeed. Well, he got through the day, and the next day he went to the swimming class. The instructor said, today we jump in the water. Wait, the rabbit said. I talked to my parents about swimming. They didn't learn to swim. We don't like to get wet, and I'd like to drop the course. The instructor said, you can't drop it. The drop and add period is over. At that point, you have a choice. Either you jump or you flunk. The rabbit jumped in. He panicked. He went down once. He went down twice. Bubbles came up. The instructor saw him drowning, reached in and pulled him out. The other animals had never seen anything as quite as funny as this wet rabbit who looked more like a rat without a tail. And so they chirped and jumped and barked and laughed at the rabbit. The rabbit was more humiliated than he'd ever been in his life. He wanted desperately to get out of class that day. He was glad when it was over. He thought he would head home, but his parents would understand and help him. When he arrived home, he said to his parents, I don't like school. I just want to be free. Parents said, if the rabbits are going to get ahead, you have to get a diploma. The rabbit said, I don't want a diploma. Parents said, you're going to get a diploma whether you want it or not. They argued, and finally the parents made the rabbit go to bed. In the morning, the rabbit headed off to school with a slow hop. Then he remembered that the principal had said that any time he had a problem, to remember the counselor's door is always open. And the rabbit did. He went to the counselor and he said, I don't like school. And the counselor said, tell me about it. And the rabbit did. The counselor said, Rabbit, I hear you. I hear you saying you don't like school because you don't like swimming. I think I have a diagnosis that will correct this for you. Rabbit, I'll tell you what we'll do. You're doing just fine in running and jumping. I don't know why you need to work on running, so we'll take you out of the running class. What you need to work on is swimming. I'll arrange it so you don't have to go to running and jumping anymore, and you can have 2 periods of swimming. The rabbit threw up. As the rabbit hopped off to the office, he looked up and saw his old friend, the wise owl, who cocked his head and said, Brer Rabbit, life doesn't have to be that way. We could have schools and businesses where people are allowed to concentrate on what they do well. Brer Rabbit was inspired. He thought when he graduated, he would start a business where the rabbits would do nothing but run, the squirrels could just climb, the eagles could fly, and the fish could just swim. As he disappeared into the meadow, he sighed softly to himself and said, oh, what a great place that would be. Oh, what a great place Coast could be. Thank you.